Welcome back to Tell Your Story Alaska. We're going to hit two more villages today. The village of Chuloonawick and Circle, Alaska. Two really uniquely named villages. And we're going to find out why they are uniquely named. They each have their own stories. So we're going to get the stories of those. But before we get into that, I just wanted to share, it has been a very busy season. I've just been doing so many different things, but it's busy in a good way. You know, you can complain about being too busy, but I'm busy in a really good way. I've just done so many really neat and sweet things. Like last Friday, this thing came up on my Facebook about an event in Palmer called Show and Shine at the Great Alaska Aviation Gathering. It's an annual thing. I've only gone there kind of just a thing to bring my kids to. We went a year ago. But this year, a thing came up, putting your plane into a little competition. And I kind of signed up. I think it was on Friday evening. I was asked my wife if it'd be all right. You know, normally on Saturdays, we kind of honor the Sabbath, not as a rule, but just as a value to take one day to rest, to cease and rest. But it's not a rule. It's kind of a gift for us to enjoy. So anyway, I asked my wife about taking my plane over there to the Show and Shine. And so she said, yeah, go for it. So I signed up, flew my plane over there, and I had no idea what I was doing. But I was under the category of assorted awesomeness because I didn't really know what else to put my plane under for a category. And then people kind of walk around all these airplanes and they vote on which plane that should win each category. And I'm not a person who wins things ever, but I won the assorted awesomeness category for that competition. Now, there were some other planes signed up, but I didn't see them around, so I might have been the only plane in the category. But I did win a case of oil and a David Clark headset, so that was pretty awesome. And I got to chat with a lot of people, talk airplanes with people, connect with people I already knew, and met some new people. So that was pretty cool. And then on Sunday, I went over to, I think it's Eagle River, to Wildwood Bible Church. They invited me to preach there. So I preached the Sunday morning sermon on Colossians 3 about sanctification, and I really enjoyed that. And then I treated myself to, I bought myself a fishing pole. I haven't bought a fishing pole in years. I mean, the last fishing pole, the one I have now, someone just gave it to me. I mean, it's literally been maybe a decade or two since I bought a fishing pole. So anyway, I bought a fishing pole, getting ready for the upcoming fishing season. And so I treated myself. Anyway, that was sweet. And then I went to a prayer gathering Sunday night, which is always very, very sweet. And so now today I ran a bunch of errands this morning, and here we are recording our next two villages. So enough about what I've been up to. Oh, you know what else is coming up is it's the MARC Safety Conference. I don't know if I named it quite right. I've gone to it the last 2 years. It's quite good. MARC is a great organization. I've interviewed Peter Bask, their executive director, and they actually did a bunch of work on my Cherokee 6 recently, and they did it in a very affordable way for me because that's what they do as a ministry. Saved me just a huge amount of money, so I'm really grateful for MARC. But they also put on this safety conference, and that will be later this week. And so Buddy, another pilot friend of mine, are going to go fly down there for the safety conference. Always great to connect with other like-minded pilots and to, grow in the culture of safety that all of us want to have. And also my parents are coming to visit. They'll be here on Saturday, and they're going to be here for 10 days. I'm looking forward to having them here. And it's partially my motivation for buying a fishing pole. My dad is a fisherman, and so he and I are going to go fishing when he comes. And yeah, besides that, there's a very busy summer coming up and lots of balls in the air that haven't landed yet. And so I'm doing a lot of figuring things out right now. But anyway, looking forward to that stuff. Well, let's dive into our villages. Today we're going to start with the village of Chuloonawick. Now, Chuloonawick is interesting because it's not really a village. It is an abandoned village. It is out on the Yukon Delta in Western Alaska. And when I looked it up on Google Earth, there's really nothing there. It's just rivers and trees. And it did make me think, it is kind of amazing how you can, if you're floating down the river, you could be passing some ancient site where people lived out their lives and not even know it. And Chuloonawick is one of those types of places. Now, historically, Chuloonawick was a seasonal fishing site for the Yupik people. There's a lot of these villages were old fish camps. And fish camps, I think I've talked about this plenty before. I actually don't know a ton about it. I've never been to a fish camp. Like, I've never like participated in the event of a fish camp, but I would really enjoy that. But oftentimes these fish campsites become villages. And this is one of those. Well, it never actually really became a village, but we'll talk about that in a second. The original name for the site was Quickpuck, or also could be Quickpuckamuit, and it was first given in 1879 by the U.S. Coast Guard and Geodetic Survey, whatever that is. The word Quickpuck, it refers to the lower Yukon River Delta area. So this is a Yupik word, and that is the name that they gave to this area. And this was interesting because the suffix that it ends with the word quickpack, and then there's a suffix muit, and that suffix means people of or inhabitants of. So you could translate this to the people of the lower Yukon Delta area, and that was the original name of Chuloonawick. Now the name Chuloonawick means a place to salt fish. A place to salt fish. So that kind of reflects a historical role or site as a fish camp. Now, this abandoned village is tightly knitted with the nearby village of Imanak. I should have looked up how to pronounce that properly. My apologies for that, but it's Imanak. And that is where the village office for Chuloonawick resides. The residents of Imanak, they use Chuloonawick still as a fish camp, they say, as well as other people from other villages as well. Now, despite being abandoned, the reason it's still on the list of registered villages is because in 1994, a guy named William H. Ackers, I'm going to say Ackers, William H. Ackers made efforts to have the village federally recognized as a village. There are still 100 members of the community who live in other villages, but they're considered members of Chuloonawick. There is even a village president today, whose name is, I might have had a typo here. I think it's Roberta Murphy. And it's possible this is outdated. I didn't check the date of this source, but it's kind of interesting. There's no one lives there, but there's 100 members, and they have a village president. So I had to ask the question, who was William H. Ackers, and why did he make an effort to have Chuloonawick registered as a village on the list of villages? Well, William H. Ackers was a prominent Native leader and a community advocate. He was born on January 1st of 1947 in McGrath, Alaska, which I've been to many times. And he became a professional fisherman and operated a fishing processing firm in the nearby village of Imanak. So he noticed this site in Chuloonawick as a historical native fish camp, and he wanted to register it as a site as a means of preserving his native heritage there. Now, this is a really common sentiment in Alaska, a desire to preserve the native heritage, their ancestry, their history, their languages, all of these preservation efforts. So these are quite common in Alaska, and I do applaud these efforts. I think we should remember the heritage of the native people, and we should preserve the culture and the language. I mean, I spent 7 years of my life learning to speak an indigenous language, So I can write it down and do a lot of translation work in part to preserve the language. So yes, I'm very much on board with that. But it makes me think about my own heritage. I'm half Swedish and half German. There's other stuff. I'm mostly Swedish and a lot German, I should say. Um, but truthfully, I don't identify with being Swedish or German. It's just one of those questions people ask. Well, what's your heritage? Oh, I'm Swedish. I usually just say I'm Swedish, but I'm actually I'm probably like more than half Swedish and then a big chunk German, and then everything else is just like mutt stuff, But I don't really identify with that as much as I do as identify as American, which is really kind of a interesting and modern thing. Being American can mean you're from Japan or you're from India, you're from the Middle East or something like that. American can mean a lot of things, but it's like its own unique cultural identity is American, even though it is a melting pot of cultures. And so I identify really as an American when I think about my sort of national identity. But because I preached last Sunday, I'm kind of in a preachy mode. You could bear with me, but it does make me think that, cultures, nations, the histories of various kingdoms. I'm sure there's been entire like small civilizations that we don't even know about. They just went away. Of course, this is true of Native American culture, especially. They're just gone, and we almost know nothing about it. But it is true that this is the great thing about being the part of the kingdom of God. It's just this is an eternal kingdom. While earthly ones come and go, I always think of the Roman Empire. Just it was one of the greatest empires in world history, and it's gone now. But God's kingdom is an eternal one. It will always endure. And so it's just a firmer thing to identify with. It's a heritage that transcends all earthly kingdoms. It's a heritage that'll never die. It's a very solid heritage. So I identify with that all the more. So I do love what William H. Akers wanted to do, is preserving history and knowledge and identity with a people group. This is a good thing. But it does remind me that to identify for me is important, to identify with an eternal one. All right, no more preaching there. Here we go. Let's talk about Circle, Alaska. Now, of course, I have to ask, why would you name a village after a shape? And we will get to that. So Circle is located up in the Yukon Flats area, which is the northeastern region, which is kind of like around Fort Yukon, which is sort of the bigger town in that area. Circle was established in 1893. It was originally called Circle City. It was a supply hub for miners working the Birch Creek gold fields. So I looked up, what are the Birch Creek gold fields? I think I've actually mentioned these before in other episodes, but here it is. In the summer of 1892, Russian Koyukon miners, so this was, it's just so interesting, a Russian Koyukon mix, so a Native Alaskan and Russian mixed person. Their names were Pitka Pavlov and Sergei Cherosky. They discovered gold along Birch Creek at a specific spot known as Pitka's Bar, obviously named after one of the guys who found the gold there. And this was all that was needed for the influx of prospectors, which ended up causing the founding of this village of Circle, all these gold rush people. And of course, there's a lot of gold rush villages, and this is one of them. Now, the reason for the unique name of Circle is that prospectors thought that it was located directly on the Arctic Circle itself. Now, they were actually mistaken. Circle is about 50 miles south of the Arctic Circle line, but still they thought that, and the name kind of stuck as Circle. By 1896, Circle had become the largest mining town on the Yukon River, with a population between 700 and 1,200 residents. It earned the nickname the largest log cabin city in the world. There were dance halls, an opera house, a library, a school, a hospital, and a newspaper called the Yukon Press. That intrigued me. I like to watch the news and stuff. So I was like, what is the Yukon Press? This is what it is. The Yukon Press was founded by Jules Louis Prevost. He was an Episcopal missionary, and with the assistance from a man named Gordon C. Bettles, they founded this newspaper. They aimed to provide the miners and residents with news, updates on mining activities, social events, or whatever other information was helpful for the community. This newspaper would report on gold strikes in the area. So you can imagine if it's reporting on gold strikes and you are a prospector, you might want to purchase a copy of the Yukon Press. And of course, that was the Yukon Press's heyday. I'm guessing is because it had gold strike reports. Bettles himself wrote articles, and he wrote of the expectations, what miners should expect. He said they should expect to work a full season before making any profit. And so he wrote things like that. Now, Jules Louis Prevost, who was the other founder of this newspaper, he was also a linguist as he translated portions of the Book of Common Prayer and various hymns into the Upper Koyukon language. He also offered church services for the indigenous peoples, and he was even postmaster in Tanana for a while, and he operated a sawmill there. And so there's quite a lot that guy did. One of those guys that does a little bit of everything. And so I thought that was kind of cool. I believe I've talked about him before. Everything I just said about him really rings a bell, but I don't remember. I think I have a bad memory or something. There's another interesting figure, which was a man named Father Rice. Father Rice dedicated 15 years of his life ministering in the region of Circle. In addition to conducting religious services, he also maintained a hospital. He traveled by dog team to various communities, including Fairbanks. Now, according to this source, there are no structures from the original Episcopal mission in Circle today. But when I always try to scan through photos of the village, and there is a photograph of kind of a log-style cabin church in the village, but I couldn't tell if that was from the Episcopalians or if it was something else. I'm just not sure. I did find a few photographs of Circle when it was at kind of in its heyday, in its glory days in the late 19th century. In the photos, you can see a line of impressive buildings, which presumably is the downtown area. And it's interesting to me, just the scale, because I counted 5 or 6 pretty large buildings, but that kind of made up the heart of this town. And if you drove through a town and its downtown was just 5 or 6 buildings, we would say it was a podunk town. But this was actually kind of a bustling town. We just kind of have different standards today. It's 700 to 1,200 people living there. There was one picture that I found that featured the Circle Springs Hotel, and that looked like a pretty big building. I actually should have taken the time to see if those buildings are still there. I'm not sure, but I imagine some of them are still there. That'd be really neat to see. Let's see. So the decline of Circle happened when gold was found in the Klondike in 1897 and in Nome in 1899. And this was the start of the decline of Circle from its heyday. Some people stuck around, and there have been small gold mining operations in the area into the 20th century. Now, this does remind me, I mentioned going to Bass Pro Shop yesterday, which I haven't been to in forever, but I went. I bought a fishing pole, but I also bought a gold pan. I don't have a gold pan. I live in Alaska. It was like just a few dollars for a plastic gold pan, but I do plan on going to some remote spots that, not a lot of people have been to. So I was like, I should bring a gold pan. I mean, even if I've never even like found a flake before. So it's like on my bucket list, I guess. I want to find a flake. So I have a gold pan now. And I guess you can say I will have a minor gold mining operation going on. Okay, let's see. Today's Circle has 91 residents, mostly Athabascan native people. It is the northern terminus of the Steel Highway and functions as a checkpoint for the annual Yukon Quest sled dog race. There is still a general store and a gas station in town, And there's also the Circle Historical Museum, which has on display old mining equipment and artifacts. So like many gold rush towns, Circle had its glory days, but they were cut short like many of our lives. So that's a good reminder. Circle came and went, and it's just a small village today. It's no longer what it used to be. Reminds us to make sure you delight in today. Be present with your kids. See, I'm getting preachy again. And, whatever thing you were, one day I'll do that. Just maybe you should just go do it now. There's always a reason not to do things. There's always I'm tired or, money and stuff like that. But whatever your thing is, I think you just go do it anyways. Because before you know it, your time is up. Just like Circle's time. All right, guys, no more preaching. That was a good one with Circle and Chuloonawick. Next week, we will be doing Circle Hot Springs and Clam Gulch. Circle Hot Springs, which is different than Circle, but it is pretty close. And Clam Gulch, which will be fun. All right, that's it. Thanks for tuning in, guys, as we get to know our state, one village at a time. We'll see you next week.